My friend, today I want to speak directly to your heart. God has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. He's not ignoring your pain or your prayers. In fact, God has a miracle waiting just for you. It may not look like what you expect. It may not come when you expect it. But it is on the way according to His perfect will and His perfect timing. Waiting is one of the most difficult disciplines in the Christian life. We don't mind working, we don't mind walking, and we don't even mind enduring pain if we know that something is happening. But when we are asked to wait, when we are told to be still while everything around us feels like it's moving forward, that's when our faith is tested the most. Yet the Bible is full of men and women who receive their greatest miracles, not in moments of action, but in seasons of waiting. Abraham waited 25 years for the son God promised him. Joseph waited 13 years through betrayal, false accusation, and prison before stepping into his destiny. Moses waited 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to lead Israel. David was anointed king as a teenager, but waited many long, hard years before wearing the crown. What do all these men have in common? They were not forgotten. They were being formed. You see, God's silence is never a sign of His absence. When heaven seems quiet, it's not because God is ignoring you, it's because He's working on something greater than you can see. Just because the door hasn't opened doesn't mean the plan has been canceled. It means the construction is still underway. While you are waiting, God is aligning people in your life. He's orchestrating circumstances. He's allowing certain things to fall apart so that better things can come together. He's not just preparing the blessing for you, He's preparing you for the blessing. That's the difference between the world's view of waiting and God's view. The world says, if you're waiting, you're wasting time. But God says, if you're waiting, I'm working. Isaiah 64:4 tells us, God acts for the one who waits for Him. Think about that. God moves on behalf of those who wait. That means your stillness is not passivity, it's trust. Your waiting is not laziness, it's faith in action. But let me tell you something important. Waiting is not easy. It requires surrender. It requires choosing to believe even when you don't see results. It means holding on to God's promises when your circumstances seem to say the opposite. Some of you listening today have been waiting for a long time, waiting for healing, waiting for restoration, waiting for an answer that hasn't come. And you're tempted to give up. You're tempted to settle. You're wondering, has God forgotten me? He has not. Psalm 27:14 says, wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and He shall strengthen your heart. In other words, the strength you need is found in the waiting. The clarity you're looking for is revealed in the waiting. And the miracle you're praying for, it's being fashioned in the quiet, behind the curtain, in the secret place where only God can see. Friend, don't rush what God is writing. Don't try to force what only God can finish. The delays you're experiencing are not denials, they are divine pauses. And when God moves, He won't be a moment too late. So keep waiting, keep worshiping, keep believing. Because in God's kingdom, waiting is never wasted. It's where miracles begin. There is something about the impossible that attracts the hand of God. Time and time again throughout Scripture, we see that God doesn't wait for the perfect setup or the ideal circumstances. He steps into the impossible, and there He performs the miraculous. We don't serve a God who waits for the odds to be in our favor. No, we serve the God who shows up when the odds are completely against us, just to remind us that He alone is God. You think about the children of Israel standing in front of the Red Sea. Behind them, Pharaoh's army. In front of them, nothing but water. There was no logical way out, no strategy that could save them. But what did God do? He didn't turn them around. He didn't build a boat. He split the sea in two and made a path through the impossible. Why? Because He wanted His people and their enemies to know that this wasn't human strength. This wasn't human wisdom. This was divine intervention. Miracles are not born in comfort zones. They are born in the fiery furnace, in the lion's den, in the prison cell, in the doctor's office after a diagnosis you never expected. They are born in the darkest nights, the deepest valleys, the hardest moments of your life. Maybe you're standing in front of your own Red Sea right now. Maybe everything around you is shouting, it's over, there's no way forward. That's exactly the kind of scene God loves to step into. Luke 1:37 says, "For with God nothing shall be impossible." That's not just a nice verse for a greeting card. That's a declaration. It's a promise straight from heaven that what is impossible with man is always possible with God. God didn't tell Noah to build an ark when the skies were gray. He told him to build it when no one had ever seen rain. He didn't call Abraham the father of many nations when he was full of strength, but when his body was as good as dead. He didn't raise Lazarus when he fainted. He raised him when he had been dead for 4 days. Why? Because the impossible becomes the platform for God's glory. We cry out for miracles, but we often resist the impossible. We want the breakthrough, but we don't want the pressure that precedes it. But friend, you cannot have a resurrection without a tomb. You cannot have a testimony without a test. And you cannot see the power of God until you've come to the end of your own power. Maybe you've been asking, why is it so hard right now? Could it be that you're standing on miracle ground and don't even know it yet? God is not intimidated by your situation. He's not caught off guard by your diagnosis, your finances, your broken marriage, or your wandering child. He already knows the outcome, and he's not pacing heaven's floor trying to figure it out. He's waiting for the right moment to reveal his power. So don't let the impossibility of your situation cause you to give up. Let it cause you to look up. Because your impossibility is not the end, it's the beginning of something supernatural. And when God moves, everyone will know it was him. You don't need perfect circumstances to see a miracle. You just need to be in the perfect hands of a miracle-working God. There's a lie that the enemy loves to whisper in the ears of God's children, and far too many of us have believed it. It's the lie that says God has forgotten you. When the answers don't come quickly, when the silence lingers longer than you expected, when the breakthrough feels overdue and the heavens seem closed, that's when the enemy sneaks in and tries to convince you that God has moved on without you. But I'm here to tell you today, you are not forgotten. You are chosen. Long before you took your first breath, God had his eyes on you. Long before your pain, before your setback, before your storm, he had already written your name into his plan. Psalm 139:16 says, "Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. And in your book they all were written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them." That means God knew every detail of your life before your life even began. He saw the hard days, the lonely seasons, the nights of tears, the moments of confusion. And he didn't change his mind. He didn't remove your name from his book. He didn't cancel your calling. You're not forgotten. You've been set apart. You've been set apart. Sometimes we confuse being hidden with being ignored. But there's a difference. God doesn't hide you because he's rejecting you. He hides you because he's protecting you. He hides you because he's preparing you. Think of David. Before he was ever known as king, he was just a shepherd boy tending sheep out in the field, forgotten by his father, overlooked by his brothers, but seen by God. When the prophet Samuel came to anoint the next king of Israel, David wasn't even invited to the gathering. Everyone else was paraded in front of the prophet, but David was left outside. And yet, it was David who was chosen. Why? Because man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. God sees what others miss. You may not have a platform right now. You may not have a spotlight. You may feel like you're walking through life unnoticed and unheard. But just because people don't see you doesn't mean God doesn't know exactly where you are. In fact, sometimes God keeps you hidden so that he can grow something inside of you that can only be developed in obscurity. Your character, your endurance, your dependence on him. He's not punishing you by keeping you in the background. He's preparing you for the right moment to bring you forward. Because when God reveals what he's been doing in the dark, it will be unmistakably him. You are chosen, my friend, chosen for this time, chosen for this battle, chosen for this generation. And if God has chosen you, no rejection on earth can cancel his acceptance in heaven. Don't let temporary silence make you forget permanent promises. Don't let what you feel override what you know. And don't let the delay define your destiny. The God who formed you is still forming your future. The God who called you is still calling you forward. And the God who chose you has not changed his mind. So lift your head, stand firm, hold on to the Word of God, because your name is still written in his book, and he never forgets his own. Faith is not a feeling. It's not a mood or a moment. It's not a rush of emotion that comes and goes with the music or the atmosphere. No, faith is a decision, often a difficult one, to trust in what God has said, even when you can't see the evidence. Hebrews 11:1 tells us, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In other words, faith grabs hold of what hasn't happened yet and believes that God is already working it out. Faith sees the invisible, believes the impossible, and receives the incredible. The truth is, many people miss their miracles because they're waiting to feel something instead of choosing to believe something. But faith isn't about your senses, it's about your confidence in God's character. Think about the woman with the issue of blood. For 12 long years, she suffered. She spent all her money, went to every doctor, and still found no cure. But one day, she heard that Jesus was passing by. And in that moment, something shifted inside of her. She didn't say, if he notices me, I'll be healed. She didn't say, if he comes to my house, I'll be healed. She said, if I can just touch the hem of his garment, I shall be made well. That is faith. She didn't wait for Jesus to call her out. She pressed through the crowd. She reached out with expectation. And in one touch, just one touch, power flowed from heaven and healing filled her body. Jesus turned and said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. It wasn't her desperation that healed her. It wasn't her suffering that healed her. It was her faith. Too many people are waiting for God to do something spectacular before they start believing. But faith doesn't follow results. Faith produces results. Faith steps out before the water parts. Faith walks around the walls before they fall. Faith lifts up praise before the victory comes. And let me tell you, faith is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's just choosing to pray one more time when you feel like giving up. Sometimes it's reading the Word when you don't feel a thing. Sometimes it's waking up every day and saying, God, I trust you, even when everything around you is falling apart. Faith is the bridge between your current situation and your coming miracle. And God always honors faith. He may not respond to fear. He may not react to panic. But when he sees faith, when he hears someone say, I believe you anyway, that gets his attention. That opens the heavens. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. But with faith, even the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. So what is God asking you to believe today? Maybe it's healing. Maybe it's restoration. Maybe it's provision. You might not see how, you might not know when, but that's the beauty of faith. It trusts the who, even when you don't understand the how. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need perfect faith, you just need persistent faith. Faith that says, God, even now, I believe. Because faith is not just the key to your miracle, it is the very thing that puts the miracle in motion. If there's one thing that frustrates the human heart more than anything else, it's God's timing. We want answers now. We want doors to open today. We want healing immediately. But the God we serve is not in a rush. He's never early and he's never late. He is always perfectly, divinely on time. Ecclesiastes 3:1 tells us, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. That means there's not a single thing that happens in your life by accident. Not a delay, not a detour, not even a disappointment. All of it fits into a timeline far greater than your own. And that's hard for us, because when we're hurting, we want relief now. When we're waiting, we want the wait to end. And when we've been praying and believing and still nothing seems to be changing, the enemy creeps in and says, maybe God isn't listening. Maybe you missed it. Maybe it's too late. But I want you to hear me clearly today. God has not forgotten your prayers. He hasn't overlooked your faith. He hasn't canceled the promise he made over your life. He's simply working according to a divine calendar you cannot see. You see, God is not just preparing the blessing for you, he's preparing you for the blessing. And if he gave it to you too early, it could crush you instead of bless you. If he opened the door too soon, you might not be ready to walk through it. Think about Joseph. He had a dream from God that one day he would rise to leadership and influence. But before the dream was fulfilled, he was betrayed, sold, imprisoned, and forgotten. 13 years passed. 13 years of silence, confusion, and pain. But when the time was right, not a moment sooner, God lifted Joseph from the prison to the palace. Why didn't God do it earlier? Because the purpose wasn't ready, and neither was Joseph. But when the right moment came, everything changed in an instant. Friend, that's how God works. One moment you're in a battle. The next moment, breakthrough comes. One moment, you're waiting. The next moment, the answer is at your doorstep. That's how suddenly God moves when the time is right. Galatians 6:9 says, "Let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." Notice that phrase, due season, that's the appointed time. The scheduled hour, the divine moment when the waiting ends and the miracle begins. But here's the challenge. We don't know when that season will arrive. And so we're tempted to give up too soon. We're tempted to walk away just before the breakthrough comes. But I believe someone reading this is closer than they think. God hasn't changed his mind about you. He hasn't abandoned the plan. What he promised, he will perform. You may feel like nothing is happening, but in the unseen realm, things are shifting. Prayers are being answered. Doors are being formed. People are being positioned. All of it is moving toward the moment God has already marked on his calendar. So don't quit. Don't grow bitter in the waiting. Don't lose faith in the silence. Because when your miracle comes, and it will, you'll look back and realize that every second of waiting was worth it. Every tear, every trial, every test, it all prepared you for the blessing. God's timing is not just good. It's perfect, and it's right on time for you.